All right, all right. How we doing, Midwest House?
Yeah, I think
all right, I hope y'all enjoying that Detroit-style pizza and all this good stuff here. It's the best kind of pizza in the country. Let nobody tell you otherwise. So I'm Lieutenant Governor Carlin Gilchrist from the state of Michigan. Proud to be back here joining everybody here at the Midwest House on Michigan Day. So I'm really excited, though, to have a conversation with a couple of legends, a couple of people who are not just like pioneers in their own art, but pioneers in Michigan and in American culture. And I'm talking about the fact that, how many of y'all ever heard of Techno? It's my son's favorite kind of music, so I get to hear it a lot. And I'm so proud that Techno was born in the city of Detroit, where I'm from. And I'm so proud now to be on the stage, though, with two amazing innovators and leaders in this art and our culture. So I want to introduce to you Wallace. And the godfather of Techno himself, Mr. Juan Atkins. Now, I'm gonna keep this light, and I want to have them tell their own story, but I just want to set some context, because it might be a little weird. Why is it that, I'm here talking to these artists at South by Southwest here at the Midwest House? But I think the answer is really simple. We want people who have ideas and creativity and energy to know that Michigan is the best place to have an idea, to express your creativity, and to bring that energy into the world. And so we care that anyone in any realm, in any genre, in any area who is creative, that they feel like they have a path for success and opportunity in the state of Michigan. So we've been talking a lot about tech companies and about startups and about investing and about opportunity in that way for most of the day here. You heard about different markets in Michigan and the things we're doing. But I think it's important that we anchor this day by talking about art, because for so many people, it's art that drives their creativity, and they are inspired when they see artists bring their own art into the world. So that's why this matters to Michigan. That's why it matters to me, and I hope y'all enjoy our conversation here. So I want to start with you, Dre. Just introduce yourself to these people. Let them know just who you are and why you do what you do.
Sure, yeah. My name is, my full name, Andrea Wallace. Everybody calls me Dre. Lots of people know me as Super Dre. I've been a music producer and DJ for about 16 years. And I'm also a startup founder. I'm the CEO of a music tech startup called OPNR. We basically have this platform that brings together independent musicians and concert organizers, and we use all the data that we know about them and fans to be able to help places like this to be able to move tickets.
Thank you, Dre. Thank you. And Brother Juan Atkins, please introduce yourself to these folks here.
Hey, I'm Juan Atkins, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. And I started a label called Deep Space Records in 1980, 81. Released my first all-electronic techno record called Alleys of Your Mind under the group name Cybertron, along with my partner Rick Davis. And we kind of like started the whole techno train rolling with that record and with the name with the group, and everything is kind of like history from there. And I don't know that that could have happened in any other state in the union than in Michigan. So that's why I'm here.
All right. So now both of y'all got started at a pretty young age. I know, Juan, you got your first synth when you were like 15. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
13?
Yeah, for my 15th birthday, my grandma bought me a Korg MS-10 at Grinnell's. And she used to be there like buying sheet music and accessories for the Hammond B3 organ that I played around with all through like grade school and middle school. And eventually I was able to talk her into getting me this Korg MS-10. And yeah, so it was kind of like it just kind of got the ball rolling from there.
Dre, How did you get started? How did you fall in love with art?
Music-wise, so my mom, who's sitting right over there, she, she is a pretty good classical pianist, much better than I am, but like that's kind of where we got our start. Both my brother and I, she would show us the basics when we were really little, like kids. And after that, I've been in, I started like playing my own like first instruments and everything in elementary school. And I was in jazz band, concert band, marching band, symphony, every band that existed. I was in a rock band for a second too. So that's been pretty consistent for me all the way through college and after.
So, I mean, even as part of your story, you talked about getting started as kids, but both of you, whether you as a founder or Juan just by embracing, this and creating this art really, the infusion of technology and art is really at the core of what you do and all the people who you've inspired. What is it about that mix that's so magic? I'll start with you, Juan.
Sorry, what was it about?
What is it about that mixture of art and technology that allows you to do things that otherwise aren't possible?
I was kind of just going with the flow, It was like it was just my surroundings, and everything that was available to me at that moment, prompted me to be creative and just keep it moving,
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I guess being a musician is kind of like the ultimate level of entrepreneurship anyway, so that mixing with technology is almost a must because you need it to run whatever, what business you're doing. But I think the two mixed together just make a lot of sense. I think especially, both of us being DJs, the equipment that we're using is technical, but at the same time, it's what you do with that equipment that's very much the artistic parts of it, so that you can't really pull the two apart.
So let's build on that a little bit. So there are things that I know because the tech and music has evolved so much over the last 50 years that there are things that people who were making music before I was born, that's all I'll say, who there's things that weren't possible. You could imagine something, but it was really hard to make it a reality that are just easy now because of the technology. What is something in the way that the tech has evolved that really just amazes you? Like something you can do today that you couldn't do 10 years ago?
Honestly, I mean, even like just DJ equipment, period. Like, I'm not that old, but stuff is way different than when even I first started. Like, I bought my first pair of Techniques turntables off of Craigslist and like taught myself how to DJ with this really, really bad 2-channel Vestax mixer. And then, but it was like after that, then Final Scratch came out, which Richie Houghton developed. And then after that, like it turned into all these other platforms where you didn't have to bring records with you all the time. You could have your crate on your computer. And then it went from that to CDJs where you now just put a flash drive in. So it's like even that just over the last like 10, 15 years has changed so much, and now there's controllers for stuff. So it's evolved a lot.
Yeah, kind of going back a little bit to the last question, and also is like when I got this Korg MS-10, it had just been released. And I mean, they were just starting to release like what they call monophonic synthesizers to the public at the time. It was like a monophonic synthesis that only plays one note at a time. But the thing about this synthesizer is that you can make all kind of different sounds and create sounds that never been heard. And that was fascinating for me because I was always into sci-fi and I wanted to like land spaceships down on my record, And so the synth kind of allowed me to make these sounds. And, it was like the technology at that time was real early. I mean, I don't even think it was like that. The drum machines was a Roland DR55. So what we started with was like a preset, had presets. But from that point until, different manufacturers couldn't even talk to, like the MIDI wasn't even invented yet. So if you had a Korg synthesizer and a Roland drum machine, they wouldn't work together, like for sequencing until like MIDI came. So when MIDI came, like maybe 6, 7 years down the road, it allowed you to use different manufacturers' devices to sync and talk to each other, and that was like a quantum leap. Then the sampler came out, and what the sampler did was able you to take snippets of either previously recorded material or live sounds in the atmosphere or what have you, and play them like notes. So that was the next big leap in technology in terms of being creative with music. Now it's limitless with the possibility, because now the computers got involved, and you got all of these software, what they call digital audio workstations. That, I mean, the creativity is limitless now, and it's unbelievable because you don't have to deal with patch cables. You know, I mean, when I first started, it's like you be trying to do something to record, and you can't understand why you don't hear the sound, and you have to go through for about 30 minutes troubleshooting to find out it was just a bad patch cord, you know? So all of that's different now. It's like you don't have to worry about that now. You can get your ideas down a lot quicker now than before. Because a lot of times by the time you got the sound working, you forgot the idea, you know? So it's that's a different advantage now with technology than back then.
You're saying a lot of words that those of us who have written software just, hey, interoperability, backwards compatibility, everything kind of stuff.
Yeah,
we're
dealing with that stuff now.
Right. For sure, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dre, I want to talk to you about your business. So first of all, when did you start your first business?
First business, so first startup, started that in 2018.
What was it called?
It was called Fortify.
Okay.
It was a data aggregation platform, still related to the music industry, basically helping artists understand data that they already had access to, but they didn't know that they had access to it, and they didn't know what to do with it. So that was the first one when I started.
And then, so how did that then turn into you starting Opener?
Yeah, so the way Opener kind of came to be, it really is actually a melding of two startups. So Fortify and one of my partners, he was sort of working on this piece of the business that was much more focused on live experiences and bringing people together, working with promoters and festivals and all of that. So actually, we're here at Midwest House. Ted, who runs Midwest House, is the one who introduced us, and we ended up actually merging those two businesses together, which is sort of the result of what you see is Opener today.
So Opener was born at South by, did you tell me?
Not born at South by, but through South by.
Okay, all right, okay. So y'all make sure y'all meet somebody here. You might find your next business. That's great. I'd love to hear that. And so tell me, what do you think some of the most important like kind of trends that you're seeing in music or in technology that are just making entrepreneurship and business creation more viable and more accessible for music artists?
Yeah, I think, so the trends that I'm seeing, there's a ton on the creator side for sure. So I kind of think of the music industry split up in two pieces. Like I think most people think of the label stuff, like the labels, rights management, like publishing, all that stuff kind of on one side, and then the live stuff is on the other side. And live, by live, I mean like where all the money is made, like the touring and shows and all of that. And so there's a lot that's happening on the label side, like lots of creator tools, like especially now, like using AI, like tons of things in that space with people making music faster, better, cheaper, quicker, in new ways. Not as much innovation on the live side, which is why that's really where we chose to focus our energy, because it's where most of the money is made for artists, by artists, but also hasn't seen much be any different for like 60 years. So,
Juan, you got any ideas on that for us about just how technology has evolved in a way that it makes it more accessible for a music artist to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, what I want to say on that is that the internet changed the game totally. I mean, the whole way how music is distributed now, how people hear music, where they find music. I mean, you know, you don't have to rely on the major FM terrestrial radio station to hear new music or hear something that you want. and it's also the artists that are creating music have more access to their audience and don't have to rely on a program director telling you somewhere it don't fit our format. You know, you wouldn't believe how many times I heard that, actually. And that's actually what prompted me to start my own label, because, you know, the major labels didn't have a clue of what we were doing in the early days. So I would say the internet is like a major game changer in technology that kind of like made possibilities, created a lot more opportunities and possibilities for music.
All right, so we talked a lot about tech. I want to talk about music. So what, to you, Dre, what's like the most exciting thing in music right now?
I think the most exciting thing in music, honestly, is kind of what Juan just touched on. It's like, it's the accessibility to it. Like, I'm sure most of the people who are out here have probably used GarageBand before, like at least opened it, you know, messed around with it. So I think it's just the ability for anybody to be able to do it. It's not, the barriers that I think were once there are definitely a lot lower. And just the fact that you can distribute the stuff yourself, you know, like you can do self-distribution, just get on, you know, like CD Baby or whatever, and you can get all of your music on Spotify and Apple Music and all of that. Like years ago, that just would have been like a hurdle that, you know, the average musician just wouldn't be able to do. You'd have to work with a label in order for them to actually get your music to hit the shelves, but you can skip over all of those steps now, like, which is so interesting. And so you can make weird, obscure things, and you will somehow find people out there. Those people will find you who like it. So everybody, you know, can kind of easily find their tribe, which is something that I don't think, you know, was possible like 20 years ago.
I want to ask you this question yesterday too, but just what's exciting to you in music right now?
Well, you know, once again, I got to touch on the technology, digital, and like she just mentioned, the speed at which you can create new stuff, and I mean, there's like so many different sounds and so many different things that you can use to do things that basically haven't been done before. I mean, you know. When I started, it was like we were still like using conventional acoustic instruments, and you kind of get locked into a certain way or mode of doing things. But now it's like whatever comes into your mind, you can basically do it, and without limitations. And that's not always a good thing, but for the most part, the sweet. You take the bitter with the sweet, and the sweet is worth dealing with the bitter sometimes.
Okay, so both of y'all are obviously connected to the state of Michigan. I'd be curious about your take as to why is it that, you know, what's special about Michigan that led to the fact that in every single genre of music, there's at least one legend who's from some part of Michigan, whether that's techno, whether that's rock, folk, country, blues, Motown, hip-hop, R&B. Like, Michigan has made legends in every single genre of music. There's got to be something special there. Like, why do y'all think that is?
I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's I don't know, maybe it's in the water or something, but I think, but truthfully, I think like, if you kind of think culturally how Michigan is, and I didn't really realize this until I moved away and could see somewhere else, then I kind of really realized how I would describe people from Michigan. There's this like very hard-working kind of mentality, and people are really humble, and there's like nature and stuff around. So I think, so I think like just the environment, like maybe that environment just like primes people for, I don't know, making great music. But there's something about it.
What is it?
I used to get asked that question a lot a while ago, And my answer used to be, maybe it's the smoke from the auto factories or something that we breathing in.
You blame pollution? That's what you said?
Hey, it might not be bad. It might not be a bad thing, actually. You know, and so because we definitely, hey man, Ford factory was right down the street from me, man. I grew up inhaling that smoke, so.
I got a founder that's gonna do something about that right here, Darren Riley.
Yeah. All right, there you go. There we go. We're connecting. So but I think it's some kind of anomaly in there that it's somewhere with the planet and the global, whatever, that's there. That's a bed for creativity.
I'm all the way biased, but I do think we have just some of the most creative people anywhere you'll find, and people who also had this attitude of like, if it doesn't exist, I'm gonna make it myself. Juan, you said these labels didn't understand your music, so you just made your own label and made your own genre of music. That's saying something. When we see a need, we see a problem, we solve it. We see a hole, we fill it. And I think being relentless in that is probably something that makes us different.
Sure.
All right, so who's your favorite artist?
That's such a hard question.
I'm here to ask the hard questions.
Ooh, my favorite artist, of all time.
Answer however you want.
Okay, so overall, I kind of think back of stuff that I liked when I was little, up until now, probably Diana Ross. I just think she's so cool, but also just really multifaceted. I think as an entertainer in general, because not just as a musician, but as an actress, as a model, all these really cool things that she did. And she's from Detroit, so.
She went to the elementary school I went to, and she came back when I was in second grade. It was like the Super Bowl, yo. It was great. All right, Juan, who's your favorite artist?
I gotta go with myself on that one. Of course, he stepped into it.
Hey, look,
but
I put the ball on the tee. You swung it out the park. I got it. That's what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh.
Be honest with you, I don't even have another answer after that one. But
that's why we the best.
I'm
you see that? You see that? Y'all see that?
I could tell you that my influences when I was growing up was definitely George Clinton, P-Funk. And I think I'm going to just leave it right there at that one. That's what I grew up with.
All right, so part of our purpose here at South by this year and in Midwest House today is to give people exposure to not just what's happening in Michigan, but what's possible in Michigan. And so, tell me, how would you convince a fellow entrepreneur or a fellow artist that Michigan is the place they should take their next step? They should do their next project. They should start their next business. Why should they come to Michigan to make that happen?
I would say the reasons why I would tell somebody to come to Michigan. So, one, cost of living isn't too bad. It's pretty reasonable compared to a lot of other states. But from a creative perspective, if you just kind of look at the state as a whole, when I think of music, there's certainly concentrations and pockets. Obviously you have the Detroit area, southeast side of the state. Then on the west side, Grand Rapids, there's tons going on there. Also up north, in Traverse City, they have a great music scene. So there's different kinds of scenes all over the state, but also just it's pretty outside, and that helps a lot for creativity, and relaxation and all of that. And it's one of those places where, I hate to sell it too hard because I don't want everybody coming there, but
I do. Hold on now.
If you come, be nice. But no, and then in terms of from an entrepreneurship perspective, we have a really burgeoning scene, across the state of Michigan, especially, on the southeast side, and the west side now, too, is also, picking up a lot of steam. We've got unicorn companies like Doug's, that have come out of Michigan. So we can see what's possible, I think, and now like we're really starting to get traction, and so each generation that's coming along can see those things and really build on it. But I'm starting to see a lot of momentum, I think, in all of those areas, and so like tying all that in with the creative side, it just makes a lot of sense. So I see why things are starting to move in the direction that they are right now.
Wow, watching somebody come to Michigan to do their next thing.
Okay. I'm going to tell a story that I told last night, actually, at dinner with y'all. And my third release on my label was called Technicolor, and this record was like blowing up in California, right? And a station called K-Day was playing it to death. So this was at a time, this was like must have been around mid to late 80s, where vinyl was still the medium where music was sold. So I said, man, I got to go out here and promote, you know. So I loaded up the trunk with records and drove out to California with a trunk full of records to make sure they got into the stores and stuff like that and promoted, went around to the radio station, clubs, kind of like ride the momentum. And I kind of fell in love with the weather and fell in love with California. So I decided to move out there. And I stayed out there 5 years, and I realized that I was losing my edge in California. And it was kind of too laid back and kind of like
So you said it was soft, huh? That's what you
sunshine.
said?
Yeah, man. And I said, damn, I got to go back to Detroit to get my edge back, man. It was something about it was no seasons out there. It was like warm all year. And that ain't really necessarily a good thing unless you already there, already made it. Then that's when you go out there. But trying to make it and start a trend, it doesn't coming out of California, right? So I had to come back to Detroit, man, and it was something about that ice and snow and cold weather, man, that gives you the perk to get up in the morning and to make sure you do something so you ain't out there in that cold, you know. But so I moved back to Michigan, man, because of it was something about something about there that just gave me my edge, and I had to get that back, and I came back to Detroit. But plus, I was paying $2,000 rent for what will cost $1,000 rent in Detroit. So that was a good reason as well.
That's real. That's real. All right, I want to, if anybody in the audience has questions, get them thought up now. We want to give you time to hear from these two amazing artists to ask them your question directly. I guess the next thing I wanted to ask y'all about is, what do you think the state of Michigan should do in order to, recruit or retain more artists, or artists who are here, again, make sure that they stay in Michigan, or to pull artists into Michigan? Because again, I think this creative culture, I think our creative economy is the next one that is ready to bust wide open in our state. And I think we have a lot of people who would want to be a part of it but may not understand it. And so I'm just curious from y'all perspective, what do you think that we should be doing as a Michigan team to let people know that this is the place you need to take your next step?
Get behind the creative businesses. Because really, if we want, so here's kind of how I've always explained it to people. If we imagine what Michigan as a state would look like, not just Detroit, but Michigan as a state, what it would look like if Motown never left, the label itself never left, the landscape of Michigan would be very different. I think that we're already sort of known as this musical, cultural powerhouse, but it would have been insane, I think, if they had stayed. And I could think of all of the things that would have really been built around that. So we have to get behind creative projects. We have to get behind creative people, even though I know for some of the business people that feels very uncomfortable because they don't always understand what we're doing all the time. But just, we got this. But I do think it's important to get behind those things because that piece of the economy of we don't take it, you know, somebody else will take it, and people will move. Just like I moved out to LA too, you know. But I ended up coming back like after a couple of years because I really wanted to build something in Michigan because I felt like we had the foundation there, and I didn't want to do stuff that was already done in New York, you know, or in LA. I wanted to do something at home and make it our own flavor of what it should be.
So the headline here is you go to California, you get soft, and you got to come home. That's the headline. I heard both of y'all say that.
That not having seasons thing is very real. Like, I 100%. Because you wake up every day and it's sunny, and you're like, everything's fine because it's 80 and sunny every day and everyone's pretty. Yeah. Like, it's very different than Michigan.
All right, Juan, you have an idea, like, what should the Michigan team, like, what should we do or be thinking about so that artists know that that Michigan's where they need to be?
I mean, just make it easy. Make it easy make it easy, man. Low taxes, low rent, and just you know, some funding. Make funding easier. I mean, don't make people jump through hoops to do if they have a good idea, you know. And I think that's it.
All right, we got a question from the audience here. Just make sure you tell us your name first and then ask a question. And where you from?
So my name's Amani Olu. I'm from Detroit, or I live in Detroit, and I run a PR firm there, but I'm also an artist under Scott Avery. I make techno, and Juan, I'm working with Mike Banks and all the guys over at Submerge Underground Resistance. My question for you, Andrea, specifically is thinking about AI tools and music creation process. And I was thinking about the MS-10 and how at the time that was a new technology that you were manipulating to create these sounds. What do you two think about AI as a tool to just be innovative in music?
That's her, right? Oh. I'm gonna let her take that one first.
So I think like most artists like have had like been on the fence a little bit, really on both sides. Like in general, like I'm a fan of technology and I love progress and things moving forward. And if there's easier ways to do things, cool. I think just where the rub always is like how that impacts artists in general. But the way that I think of like, especially creator tools, specifically for musicians, like how those can help. I think if it's stuff that helps you do things, do tedious work faster, by all means, like, because I personally, like, I never master my own stuff. Like, I used to always have it sent out. But, like, give me some AI mastering tools, you better believe, like, I am using those. So there's stuff like that I think it makes so much sense. I think where it gets interesting is, like, on the creator piece, but I also feel like that's kind of inevitable, you know, like it's coming, and so it's just another tool in the toolbox of a musician. You still have to have some kind of, you know, foundations for doing any of this stuff, but if that helps you, you know, move things forward or do things in a new, unique, very different way, then I'm here for it.
Would you use it to make a bass line?
What'd you say?
Would you use it to make a bass line? AI?
Maybe, I don't know, like, or maybe parts of it, you know, like, so I could see, like, if I'm using it to, like, say I'm using it to maybe create a bass tone that normally would have taken me forever, right, you know, by listening to 50 drum sounds from an 808 over and over and tweaking and changing and stuff. Like, if I can use AI to do that faster, then yes. Like, now would I tell it, like, hey, make me a beat that sounds like this, and then I throw a couple synths on it, and then, like, distribute it? Probably not. I feel like that's kind of whack. That feels like a cop-out to me. but, like, you know, people will probably do that, you know, are already doing it. But I think but there's pieces in that you can still leverage those tools and still be super creative. So, yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
All right, yeah, you got to answer that one. Next question. Next question.
Hello, how y'all doing? My name is Brandon Webb. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm the founder of One City Music Group in Dallas. I have a question more about tech. In an era where streaming platforms dominate music consumption and independent artists and labels are facing significant hurdles. Based on your experiences for either of you, what strategies do you recommend for independent artists and labels to effectively navigate this landscape where streaming platforms are dominating the compensation when we're looking for fair compensation and enhance the visibility and engagement with our audiences?
Okay, so yeah, this is like it's a hairy one. So I appreciate streaming platforms for what they've done making music accessible, but yes, you are absolutely right. Like, artists get screwed. We don't really get paid very much off of them. I would, honestly, most of my recommendations to artists would be, you don't always have to release things that way either. Like, you can go direct. If you look at some of the stuff, like, you know, right or wrong, what Kanye is doing right now is kind of interesting if you look at it as a model, you know, like saying that he's not even going to distribute Vultures 2 on like streaming platforms. He's just going to distribute it on his website. You know, so I think the key with that, though, is you have to have a fan base. So you kind of have to roll back and think about, like, how are you marketing yourself, connecting with fans so that they can get directly to you? Because that is definitely you're going to make the best money that way because you can keep people out of the funnel. But I think the other piece is, like, you have to figure out some performance strategies, like performing live. That's why I said earlier, like, yes, I love that other side of, like, I love the creator tools and publishing and rights management and all the label stuff. Like, all of that is great. But the reality is, like, everybody makes their money from shows and touring, like, for the most part. So even Beyonce makes her money from shows and touring. So I think figuring that piece out, which is why we decided to focus on that as a company, because if musicians aren't getting access to performance opportunities and hitting a stage, hitting a DJ booth, then, like, the whole point is mute, unless you're just purely doing streaming from home, like on Twitch and stuff. But I think that, like, those are really going to be the things that will be the most important, is, like, having a direct connection with fans. So it's your ability to manage those relationships, and you're going to need some tech tools to help you manage those fan relationships so you can figure out how to monetize them.
Any other questions? All right, so you got one coming?
No more questions.
Okay, so all right then. I guess what we'll wrap up with is both of y'all got a good South by story for us. You got a good South by Southwest story for us?
The only one, you know, I opened the first South by Southwest, the very first one. Back in the 80s, sometimes I can't remember what year, but it was only like a 2 day. It was only 2 days, and it was just like a conferences, panels. It was no bands, it was no after parties or nothing. It was just a conference, panel talk. I came up there and did my talk, and then I got out of there, and that was it.
All right, so you are as South by OG. I like that. Okay. All right, Joe, you got a South by story? You got one.
I don't know if I have a good South by story. I don't know. I have a kid, and my baby is here, so that's kind of a story. Last South by, I was pregnant, and I was sick most of it. So, like, pushing through here at Midwest House. So, like, it's been cool to be here this time and, like, see everybody again, but feeling a lot better.
All right, you got a question? Hold on.
So for my company, Opener? Yeah. His question was, how do we find artists for Opener, the platform? Honestly, most of them kind of find us. So we're actually raising our round of our first round right now, and a lot of that is really for marketing, so we can begin to recruit some more musicians. But typically, musicians find us. It's mostly because musicians are looking for any edge, any way that they can get to a stage faster. And so typically people find us on social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Like, that tends to be how people find us. And in some cases, like, word of mouth, or through festivals just like this one. So we had an opportunity for people to come hit the stage here. So we had music here for the last 3 days, and we found all of those musicians using Opener. So. Oh, it makes us success. So anybody can honestly sign up for a platform. Yeah, so anybody can sign up on our platform. The way that it works is basically they just create a profile. We call it an EPK, an electronic press kit. Has all the basic stuff on it, connecting to social and things like that. And then they can basically, they don't have to do that much after that because they get alerts based on their criteria. And so when people are looking for opportunities to fill, like music venues like this one or festivals or whatever, then alerts go out to the musicians that fit the criteria for it. So openermusic.com, OPNRMUSIC.com.
There we go. All right.
Shameless self-promotion.
All right. Well, look, I want to thank both of y'all for taking the time to do this conversation. For those who don't know, we have an amazing show featuring these two artists tonight at 10 o'clock at Empire. Come check it out. It's going to be amazing. Again, y'all, thanks for spending time with us here at Michigan Day at Midwest House. All right.